having coached, managed, and been involved with people for 20 plus years now, I find the most egregious offense that restricts people from living a life they feel is worth living is that they are not a priority to themselves for their lives. Hear me again. Most people struggle because they don't prioritize themselves in life, and therefore, life will not prioritize you in return, or better said, and likely even more appropriate, is that life will give you the priority level you give yourself. That's just the math. And the push and the move and the inspiration for me coming on today, aside from the fact that I love doing this, is that this must have been the fourth or fifth time I've come across some form of literature or even video in my research that detailed at some point in our world and universe, the people believed that the world was flat and carried on a turtle's back. Of course, this is myth. Of course, this is not true. But consider that statement, that at one point in our existence, we could have been led to believe that there is a turtle holding up a flat world on its back. Now, why is that relevant for our talk and the level of prioritization I think you need to move into for your life, which is you are priority one? Let's just simple and plain wrap up the concept of a turtle and a flat earth on its back and how that could be possible. Simple. Somebody thought of that theory, believed it very deeply, and influenced many other people that was true. And those people then prioritized their beliefs around the fact that there's a turtle with a world that is flat on his back. Cool. Consider where you are in your life. Consider what you have been doing and the outcome and the standard that you hold yourself to. Is the standard that you hold yourself to for your life your standards? Consider that, and consider what it even means to have a standard in life. To what are you measuring your level of, I guess the word and language would be, success? Because all of us seemingly yearn for success, yet all of us define it immensely different. And your ability to dictate in language, at least, what success looks like to you will be your ability to seek out and ultimately achieve and attain that level of success. But why do I emphasize this, and why do I think it's important? And what does this have to do with a turtle and a flat earth being carried around on the back? It is likely, based on my experience, again, decades of dealing, coaching, leading, and working with people, that the standards you are holding yourself to are not really your standards. There's someone else's standards, someone else's beliefs that have influenced you in your life and have brought you to whatever conclusion you are currently living, albeit conclusion doesn't imply that anything has concluded, because hopefully, God willing, you still have more time. But there is a reality that the clock is going, ticking and a-talking. And if it is, each moment concludes in some way as you are, who you are, whomever you are in your current level of being. And if anything I have said has resonated to this point, then consider that these standards that have been bestowed upon you really have nothing to do with you, and likely, if given deeper thought, have nothing to do with how successful you are or are not. Or they could, if you continue to believe they should. So what are your standards? And how do we apply standards in our world if we seek different standards in order to seek different success for ourselves. This is the fabric of who you are. This is the identity, the part of the matrix, your character, whom you are behaving as. You are on stage at all times. And again, life is prioritizing you based on how you are performing. And so if your standards were passed down to you generationally, and a lot of this is really built in standard literature or talk around how you are born and how you mature, materialize, etc. Naturally, you're exposed. You're exposed to a standard because someone else has adopted a standard and someone else at some point was responsible for handing you down standards. Cool. That's how we get the flat earth with the turtle, right? But my contention and what I constantly, I don't want to use the word preach, but what I constantly communicate to people when we're talking about trying to evolve themselves in their space is, what are your core values? What are you holding yourself to across the spectrum that you're allowed to hold yourself to? Meaning, you have a physical body, you have a mind, you have a spirit, you have a soul. At least I believe you do. There's some form of being that applies to your character, your traits, that you have access to, and you have to at some point understand, what are you applying to each of those levels? And if you've reached a conclusion in a moment as you listen or as you are reflecting on yourself, that life is not quite what you want it to be, that you're unsuccessful, but yet you might have more time than you realize, yet you do nothing to evolve in this life, then what really are you doing and what really is your standard? Think about it. That you could be, let's say in my age group, I'm in my early 40s. Some people I speak to are in their 30s, even in their 20s. Forget 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we know what life expectancy is, but it's likely you have many more decades and years left. In any event, how could you reach a conclusion that where you are is not where you would want to be, and you do nothing to change your standards? I don't understand it. It doesn't compute to me. I can't fathom how you could come to that realization moment after moment, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and stay in that same spot, that same prioritization level. And so what I think is paramount to the conversation and what you might want to consider for possibilities and how you reprioritize yourself in your life, both who you are physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and then how that applies relationally in all aspects across the success spectrum. I'll share with you that last night I had a dream with someone in my family who recently passed. It's been a couple months now since she passed. And I was sort of anticipating that this would happen. But in any event, I asked her 3 questions, but the one, I'll save some of those for later. I don't think it's valuable for this talk. But one of the things she said to me was, be careful how deep you go, because it could result in your house being burned down. Consider what that means, and consider what your house is, and that it is clearly foundational to you, clearly has levels and layers, clearly has piping and plumbing, clearly has electricity and all the things that you would need, the types of resources you would need to live. And that those resources, albeit you did build a house for yourself, was not built on a foundation that's truly you. Because you've never been a priority in your life in any level. And so now you're stuck in all these spaces. And the only way out, the only way to start reprioritizing yourself is that you have to burn the house down. And that thought and that possibility certainly is one that should frighten you. It frightens me. It's something I believe I've been doing. And clearly based on some of where I'm at in this space and time, I think I've rebuilt some things, but there is still work to do to tear down the studs and reprioritize other areas of my space as I continue my maturation in all forms, physically, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, in this experience that we call life. So I believe there's a lot more to delve into. There's a lot more to unpack and uncover. But I hope you can take away with you the fact that you mean something. And it doesn't have to, really, it's likely that you mean something to others. And that's important. But before you can really mean something to others and have the type of impact that expands others, which naturally then expands you, because that's what it's about ultimately when you start to prioritize yourself, is just that. You mean something to you. And if what you mean to you today is deprioritized and you feel like it is not conducive to a healthy life, however you feel a healthy life should be, then check your priority levels. Consider you may need to burn the house down. And for God's sake, I hope you don't believe this world is being held up by a turtle on its back. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.